Most people don't understand what you're going through. You look normal, so you can't be sick.
Coming up today, can you really understand if you haven't lived it yourself? The mission to end isolation and connect people living with blood cancers to one another. Good morning, I'm Jessica Lovell, and welcome to the Morning Medical Update. Cancer is much more bearable when you have support. Family and friends, colleagues and neighbors, they can all help out, but even family and friends might not truly understand what it means to live with cancer. Janine Kiesling introduces us to the man behind a support group created by and for people living with blood cancers.
For more than 20 years, Turning Point, part of the University of Kansas health system, has been a place of hope, healing, and resilience. It's not a medical facility, but it plays a critical role for people living with chronic and serious illnesses and their loved ones. One of those people is Mark Slotnick, a Kansas City native whose journey through cancer has been anything but typical. Slotnick was in his early 60s when his life suddenly shifted.
It was a routine visit, and then boom, you got cancer. And then that hits you, and then you have to figure out what to do.
Diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia, or CLL, Mark started his fight in Florida, where he lived at the time. When local doctors ran out of options, he went to MD Anderson in Houston. Since then, he's been through more clinical trials and treatments than he can count.
Some of the treatments that didn't work for me. I mean, I've had it where I've had to be on crutches, I couldn't walk. I had a TIA from a treatment.
Now 83, Mark moved back to Kansas City several years ago, determined to not only keep fighting, but help others fight too.
You gotta surrender to it before you can come back from it. First, you gotta admit you have it. You know, you can't keep it bottled up.
That's where Turning Point comes in, a not-for-profit that focuses on emotional support.
We provide programs, classes, and support groups for individuals impacted by a serious or chronic physical illness. Parkinson's, cancer, heart disease, stroke. We support the individual that may have that diagnosis, but we also support their family members, their caregivers.
For Mark, the support group he helped start for CLL patients is more than just a meeting. It's a lifeline.
We understand each other. We understand what the other one's been through.
Helping others cope with cancer has in turn helped him.
I coached for so many years, and you know, I give back. That's just me. And you want to help people.
And we are so happy to have Mark Slotnick with us this morning, alongside the other Mark, Dr. Mark Hoffman, who is the medical director of the Lymphoma and Myeloma program here at the University of Kansas Health System. And across from me is Jill Von Vange, the program manager at Turning Point. So great to have you all here with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, so Mark and Dr. Hoffman, they are patient and doctor. They came together to help create this program. So first off, Mark, just thanks for being here just to share your story. Just tell us how you're doing in your cancer journey. How you feeling and how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I mean, after 18 years, you know, I'm starting to feel pretty good. I'm coming off of treatment.
Dr. Hoffman, how have you been treating Mark since he started seeing you here in Kansas City? Is this kind of the typical way you would treat his type of cancer?
I mean, I think anybody that knows Mark Slotnick knows that there's nothing typical about him. So I think he would probably be the first to admit that. He is a force of nature, which is part of the reason he's here. But in terms of his treatment details, I mean, he's lived through the therapeutic revolution of CLL. So he was diagnosed back in the days when we gave patients chemoimmunotherapy. They received intravenous drugs. They suppressed their immune systems. They caused all sorts of side effects, both short-term and long-term. And then starting in about 2013, 2014, we began to have highly effective oral agents that you can take at home, you can travel with, you can live literally all over the world. And I have patients that have done that. And so he's had a variety of different treatments, some of which were early in development, got FDA approved, and essentially are no longer used. And he's experienced those toxicities that made them no longer want to be used. And then we've basically been moving through a variety of different oral agents. I would say none of them are perfect, right? He's always very eager to stop taking them, but understands the need to take them when he does. And as we were talking about a little bit beforehand, most of the time I spend with Mark is figuring out what's going on in his life, what's going on with his other medical issues, and how does this integrate in. And then we spend a little bit of time figuring out when I can stop doing whatever I'm doing to him so that he can have a nice treatment-free interval where he doesn't have to take anything.
It's great because he's very vocal about sharing how he's doing and how he's responding to different types of.
You're never wondering what he's thinking. I'll just leave it at that. So
Yeah,
it's,
Jill was over there shaking her head when she said, yeah, he's a very unique individual, and we're so glad to get to know you. So, because Mark, we often hear the words fight or battle when we talk about cancer, but you use the word surrender. What does the word surrender mean to you?
Well, when you're diagnosed with cancer, in my opinion, you have to give into it first. That's what I call surrender. Then you can start rebuilding from there.
Do you meet people that have a tough time surrendering?
A lot of time, a lot of people.
Because you've been doing this for a while, and
Yes.
the people you meet are just being introduced to the world of cancer. What kind of conversations are you having with them?
Well, you try to let them explain their feelings, and then you can work backwards from that. It's you can't help them until they let themselves go.
Jill, surrender sounds a lot like the word acceptance. Why is mindset important when living with a chronic illness?
Well, it's important because, some days are good days, some days are bad days. And I think that if you go into life with a mindset of this is how it's always going to be and this is the worst ever, then you can't live life, fully, even if it's with a chronic illness or a serious illness like cancer. And so I think you'd asked about the word surrender, and I've really been trying to wrap my head around that since the last few weeks. And I think it's one of those things where think about what you can control and don't let a chronic illness or a serious illness control the rest of your life. And so think of yourself as not someone with cancer, but that's a part of you. That's just a piece of you. And so that you can live life fully, even with a chronic or serious illness. So think about it in that way, maybe.
Mark, what did you notice in the community, missing from the community, that made you want to start this support group?
Well, there wasn't one when I moved back to Kansas City. And I came to Dr. Hoffman and asked him if he'd start one with me. And that's been, 7 years? 7 years ago. Yeah.
What did you make of that? Your patient comes to you and says, hey, this is missing, there's a gap out there, and we need to get this started. What did you make of that, and what did you decide your role was going to be with this?
I mean, I was all for it, right? I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think as you heard from everyone else, I mean, life is lived within its paradoxes, right? You can't fight something until you surrender to it, until you accept that it's a part of your life, and then you can start to integrate it in with what you're doing. And I agree with Mark. I mean, a lot of times, over half of my visits are spent just counseling people on how can you work with this situation. Sometimes a lot more than that. I mean, you're entering into the drama of someone's life at a critical juncture. They have a new cancer diagnosis. Sometimes I'm not lucky enough to be able to offer treatments that are as well tolerated as what Mark has. And I tell somebody, you got to take 6 months off work, or we need to do a transplant, or you need to go to CAR T cells. Those are hard conversations, and you have to integrate that in with everything else. I can give them some of the tools during an office visit to understand that, but they can't flesh out and understand those details until they work with their peers.
So what was it like? I would think kind of in this less formal setting, were the questions and the conversations different in these sessions versus maybe in a clinic setting with you?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I would say that the majority of the time, if I was in the meeting, because I don't go to all the meetings, I will freely just say that. I wish I could, but it's just not workable. I change the dynamic. It becomes more medical. People are curious what's going on. People are potentially, I don't know, and you'd have to ask Mark if this is true. I would strongly suspect people are not willing to be as open about maybe some of their physical limitations. A lot of times patients don't want me to know that they're having a major issue physically because they're worried that I'm somehow not going to offer them a treatment, or that they're not going to be a candidate, or that they're going to, they want to look tough, right? Patients are often really well dressed when they come and see me. They're trying to put their best foot forward. And so it changes the dynamic a bit. I do think it's helpful from the perspective, sometimes they have questions they simply can't get worked out during a normal office visit. Sometimes they're not working with someone who has true expertise in the disease and really understands what's going on. But I think from a psychosocial dynamic, the conversation definitely shifts if I'm part of it.
Well, Mark, take us inside some of those sessions. What were they like? What were you able to draw from patients and questions? And
Well, some of the patients, want to know questions that I couldn't answer. That's why I needed a medical person there to take it. But Mark is right. They ask questions that they're afraid not to ask in front of him. And, they just want to know things, and we try to help them.
But you were also coaching people through some of these times.
Oh, yeah.
And I like this because I want to go back. Some of these throwback photos. I don't know, Dr. Hoffman, if you saw some of these, but look at old school Mark back in his coaching days. And you were mentoring folks back in the day. Did you find similarities between coaching youth sports and then leading people in the
Absolutely.
battle of their life, Mark?
Those kids are 57 years old now, and I still keep in touch with them. And one example was one of my kids whose both parents were college graduates. The kid couldn't see. I gave him my glasses. He never knew the leaves on the tree were green. So you have to teach each one in an individual way. The same thing that we do with cancer patients.
Yeah.
It's the same theory.
It sure is. And you said there's a lot of venting that happens in these sessions. What are people venting about? I bet there's a lot going on.
All their treatments, all their pain. They want to know why it's me. It goes on and on. Some of these sessions that we have at Turning Point in our Monday group with the cancer group is a new patient will come in, and for an hour and a half they'll just vent.
And sometimes you're not even talking about cancer at all, you said.
That's different, yeah. But when we don't have a new patient, we have the regular group, we'll talk about anything. But when a new patient comes in, it's their turn to vent so we can help them.
That's so great.
And it sometimes it lasts an hour and a half.
And I bet it's really powerful, though, and the support that they feel from you all.
Yes, I would have feel that. Yes, I expect that.
And some really big moments happen, I bet, in there.
Oh, yes.
Yes. But Jill, how does peer support like these groups that they offer, how does that fit in the broader picture for psychosocial care when these people are all coming together like this?
So the peer support's great because it provides compassion, camaraderie, and connection with people that are either been way on the other side of it, or at the beginning, or in the middle. And so it just provides a really great opportunity for someone to feel really validated and heard and seen, and not so isolated. And then it also can provide a great way of coping skills. Like, you often learn from others, like what worked for them, and you're like, oh, maybe I'll try some mindfulness or meditation. You might have gone into a peer support group and been like, oh no, that's not for me. I don't do that kind of thing. And then you hear from Mark, who does that, and he can tell you the benefits that it's been for him, and you go, oh, well, maybe I will try it. And so I think peer support is vital for some people, and for other people it's not a fit, and that's just each individual has their way of coping and their style.
Lots of options over at Turning Point. Dr. Hoffman, what do you think patients gain from being part of a group like this, just beyond medical facts that they might get from you?
I think there's two really big pieces to the puzzle. One is, and I think this is especially true because Mark and a lot of folks like him are members of this group. Mark's a tough dude. He's a very masculine guy, and he's attracted a group of people, some of whom don't have a whole lot to say. Like, these are guys, and yet they've created an atmosphere to show their soft side and to make it an accommodating environment for everyone to be able to speak. People aren't judged. I shouldn't say there's not women in the group, there definitely are. And so it's not like there's an exclusion to female voices, but I find a lot of male patients have a lot of trouble being vulnerable. And so having a more masculine person as the leader who shows themselves to be vulnerable is really important. I think the second aspect of it is exactly what you brought up, which is figuring out techniques of how are you going to work with this, right? And like what Mark was saying, if you walk into this starting to ask why me and how's this, those are unanswerable questions. You're not getting an answer, right? There is no way that question, and so it helps you figure out how do you accept the questions that you can't answer, and start to work with what you do have to work with. And you're working with a group of people that have walked that road with you, and they're going to sit there and let you vent or be upset, and they're not going to judge you for it, and they know you're just going through your process. And then at the point in time that you may need a little direction, you know, they give you their glasses so you can see that the leaves are still green on the trees, right? You forget that, right? You can get so colored by what's going on, you forget just basic facts like that.
Yeah, so well said. I love that. So Mark, I have to ask, what did you do before you created this group for so many other people? What was your support group like 20 years ago?
Well, there wasn't one, but, you know, you got to look at it two ways. When I broke my femur and went through rehab for 6 months every day, you have to do one of two things. You either laugh through your treatment or rehab, or you cry. And I'd laugh. You know, you got to fight. That's the whole story. You got to fight it. And that's how I got through it, because I didn't have a support group. I had my wife, who's very supportive and understood, but it's hard. You know, it is hard. Until I got to MD Anderson, found a support group, and then we moved back here and I started one with Mark. I didn't have a group.
And remind us, what does your care look like today?
I'm just on oral medication, and hopefully, and by the end of June, I will be off treatment for a while or for a long time. We don't know.
And is it just surveillance? How does that, what does the relationship between you two look like moving forward?
Well, it's always antagonistic, first
I
of all.
figured with you too.
No, but I mean, I think most of the time, I mean, we see each other, you know, a couple times a year. And, you know, he's on drugs, he's stable, there's not really much happening. So I manage a number of other issues. We gave him some infusions for his bones that he needed. So, but a lot of it is there's a little bit of medical stuff, there's a little bit of social stuff, and then there's just more treatment logistics and organization. You know, I mean, the irony, and I say this to CLL patients all the time, you know, my job is to make sure you die of something else. And it's a kind of an odd thing to say, but you got to sort of go to that morbid angle, because that's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Right? The first time you tell somebody they have cancer and they have leukemia, they're thinking about, you know, Uncle Todd that got leukemia and he was in the grave in 4 weeks. And you're like, well, that's not the same kind you have. And so you have to sort of acknowledge it. But as Mark said, right, you can go down crying or you can go down laughing.
Yeah.
And if you don't make space to have a little bit of humor in life, it can be a really tough road.
Yeah, you're being blunt in a different way, in a good way.
Yeah.
So Mark, your sessions and your classes, they continue. What other groups and sessions do you attend that help you with your journey?
Well, I'm in 4 meditation groups a week at Turning Point, and 1 cancer group. And then I have the CLL group and blood cancer group on Tuesday once a month.
And how important has Turning Point been for you? What's it been like?
Oh, and then I volunteer one day. Oh, I did volunteer before we had the COVID, and I was there 1 day a week, and it's been very important to me. I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to it.
And it's not just for KU patients.
It's for any and all patients.
Yes, it's for anyone. So you can live in Montana, Michigan, Canada. And we do have people that when this was their home base, like Kansas City was, and then when COVID happened, you know, people kind of moved and relocated to be closer to their family. And they were like, oh, I don't need that information anymore because I'm living in Florida now. And we're like, well, actually, you still can, because most of our stuff's on Zoom.
Online, yeah.
And so, yes, we have people Zooming in from Western Kansas, rural, everywhere. So, yeah, the nice thing is that you can be wherever you're at. And can zoom into most of our programs.
So online classes, in-person classes. It's not always just support groups. What else does Turning Point do?
Oh my goodness. We have in the month of, let's see, I always like to say, in the month of May and June, we have a little over 320 classes, presentations, and support groups that we offer in 2 months' time. So we have weekly meditation, we have weekly support groups, we have nutrition classes, exercise classes.
You work with the patients, the families, and kids. You help kids.
Yeah. Yes, so we help kids either with their own illness or illness of a parent or a grandparent. Palliative care team here at the health system is a big referral to our kids programs, because we know that parents are worried about what to tell the kids and how to support the kids. So.
At this Turning Point program calendar, I mean, there's
11 pages of 300 and some.
Dozens and dozens of options. I mean, you can't not find several that fit your needs. And like you said, try them and see what you like. And if not, find something else you like. So you can browse the program calendar yourself. You can check out Turning Point, their website. It's kansashealthsystem.com/Turning Turning Point. And we just want to give a quick thank you to everyone writing comments and questions during our live programs. We love sharing them with our guests and asking our doctors right here on our program. If you have something to say or chime in or have a question, use the chat on YouTube or Facebook. You can email the Medical News Network. The information is right there on your screen. Jill, what makes some groups successful but maybe not other groups? I mean, you have some that just kind of peter out over time, and then you have some like Mark's that just keep going and are going to keep going.
Well, I mean, Mark is a big reason for the success of this group. You know, his encouraging us to get the word out and providers to tell their patients and caregivers. And so a success is the consistency, I think a common thread, someone who's continuing to try to make it build. So, because we know that sometimes things take time. And so as long as you have a consistent thread, I think that helps build over time. And then the peer factor, so the listening, the validating, the non-judgmental piece of a support group. Those are what make it successful. Boundaries are important too. Confidentiality, so when you leave the group and you see someone over at Trader Joe's 2 hours later right across from our building, you're not like, oh, hey, how did that treatment go? And how's this and that go? You know, it's a friendly hello, but you're keeping things, you know, fairly private outside the group. That's going to help with the success of a group as well.
Mark, are there times when someone with good intentions, when it comes to supporting somebody who maybe is going through a cancer diagnosis, that maybe is trying to say something helpful, but it ends up not being helpful and perhaps hurtful? Help guide us through that. Any
that happens
thoughts?
a lot.
Okay, give us some advice. Help us out.
Well, I mean, people don't understand what you're going through. They'll look at you like you look at me today. You think I'm healthy, you know, and it's very difficult for somebody, especially family members, to understand. I just, over the Passover holiday, the family was there. I don't hug them. Why? Because I don't know where they've been and what they've done. They don't understand that, you know? It's just, they know I have cancer, but they don't understand anymore. And I think that happens a lot.
And you said with blood cancer in particular, and you're somebody who looks healthy and active.
My immune system's, you know, that's the problem. And I don't know where these kids have been, you know, and passing things out, and I mean diseases. So you don't do it.
So people look at you.
You do fake hugs.
Yeah,
you know?
pretend hugs.
You know, that's what you do.
So so it takes a lot of communication and
You're
explaining to people, or not, and then people don't know what's up with that.
Well, you try to explain it to them. The other thing I wanted to tell you about Turning Point, it's free.
You can't beat that.
No, and you know, you can make a donation, but all the classes are free.
Is there anything that you do or don't want to hear from other people, you know, out in the community, or loved ones, or support? Anything else? Any other advice you have for people who are trying to offer support for somebody who's traveling down this road?
Just listen to them. I think that's the biggest thing, and try to support them. I mean, and try to understand what they're going through. That's the biggest thing, and maybe you need to take a caregiver class if you're a relative or something, because caregivers don't understand what cancer patients are going through, and neither do cancer patients understand what their spouse or their partner or whatever's going through. And I think that is a big part of it.
Dr. Hoffman, participating in this, did that help kind of have a better understanding? I mean, you've been doing this a while. You have good, close relationships with your patients, but just as having this vantage point help in your clinical setting?
Yeah, I mean, I think to be honest with you, I think it reinforced a lot of things that I already knew to be true, but just on a broader scale, and so you could see them manifesting in different ways. You know, you were talking about having unsolicited advice, and one of the things I tell people is, I say, look, you have control over who knows this information about you right now, but this is like adding salt to a soup, right? You can't take it out, right? And as soon as you tell someone, you can't untell them. And so I don't want somebody to feel isolated, and yet at the same time, do they really want all of their acquaintances being aware of what's going on with them and then asking questions, and then, you know, quite honestly, opening their mouths rather than opening their ears? And that can be a major issue with a lot of patients that they get, is somebody comes in with an agenda that they think is going to be helpful, but they don't actually bother to take the time to listen to what the patient's going through and understand whether what they have to offer is actually going to be in any way helpful for what they're going through.
What advancements excite you as we head down the road when treating blood cancers?
Well, I mean, with CLL, I'll be honest, it's kind of interesting. So there was a huge trial that came out, and I shouldn't say huge, it was a phase 1 study. So phase 1 is a first in human study, but it was using all 3 of the most effective drugs, and Mark's had all of these, but never all 3 of them together. And there was a question from the audience, this was about 8 years ago, and one of the guys in the audience said, well, what do I do if this doesn't work? Like, how do I, they relapse after this, how do I manage them, what do I do? And the crazy part about CLL is I don't think about that at all anymore. There's so many things in development that I'm like, well, in 3-4 years, we're going to be talking about something completely different, a totally different class of drugs, a completely new thing that we've never done before, and it's going to work, and that patient will have that available to them to be able to use. And so you can move forward with this confidence that the pipeline that's developing drugs is going to continue to come up with interesting and new solutions that are tolerable, that are safe, that are things like Mark can take at age 83 and not have such horrific side effects that he's able to maintain disease control.
Really exciting time.
Yeah.
Before we get to community questions, tell us your fashionista background here in Kansas City for those who might not know. Tell us about the store you owned.
Yes, well, it was at 5006 Main called Bonwit West. It was the first boutique, women's boutique in Kansas City, named after Bonwit Teller out of Chicago, but we were west of Chicago, so that's why we named it that. I also manufactured women's clothes downtown at 8th and Broadway in Kansas City, and I also sold women's clothes throughout the whole Midwest. So that's my life.
That's your story.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sticking to it.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing that. All right, we are going to get to some questions from our viewers, and Jill has one. She wants to know, what are the typical stages of emotions that patients go through, Mark, that you find in your sessions?
There's many. I don't know that. I mean, highs and lows, and crying, and tantrums. I mean, we've seen it all, and they just let it go. They get to a point where they feel comfortable, they can just let it out, and then we work backwards from that.
It probably feels good to know you created this group and that people do feel comfortable sharing their emotions like that.
And I get phone calls at home. If they got a question, they'll call me. I don't know why they don't call the doctors, but I guess they feel I can, I only know so much. So, I'm enough to be dangerous, I guess. And,
I like that. If they're calling you at home, they must think you know what you're talking about. Stuart just wants to know, do you still get something out of these support groups, even after attending all of these years?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm the type of person, if I start something, I finish it. And that's just how I am.
And you're going to keep going.
Right.
Well, we appreciate you doing that. I know, Jill, you must appreciate someone like Mark is invaluable.
Yes, invaluable. I mean, I love about Mark, again, just that he has the common thread, that he consistently is advocating for other people, that he is saying, hey, let's let more people know about this group. Someone out there doesn't know about us, and if they did know about us, maybe they would find support through us. And so, he's a great champion and person to say, hey, we're here for you. And whether it's, at the beginning of diagnosis, or for some people it may not be until the middle or later in the end, but Mark has opened his arms to people, and we really do appreciate it. And he's a big advocate for support.
Mark, what do you want the big takeaway to be today from your story?
Well, just to help people. I think that's the biggest part of it. I've been through a lot, and they have the good times coming, because as Mark said, the drugs are, I've seen it over 18, 19 years, and you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I hope.
Yeah, you have a lot of hope to share, so thank you for doing that. Dr. Hoffman, what's the big takeaway today?
I mean, I think you could take a lot of things away, but I think one of the pieces of this puzzle, and this gets to what you're talking about of what do you still get out of this group, having a cancer diagnosis is not different than any other major challenge you face in your life. And there's the initial process of being angry about it, or upset about it, or questioning your faith. There's all sorts of different things that can occur which are appropriate. What gives our lives meaning is being able to take that and translate that into being able to overcome and work with it, and have that be a part of your life but not have it control your life. And that's what he's doing, that's what he's done, and that's what he's helping other people figure out how to do. And that's, I mean, if you're looking for a meaning of life, I don't know what else there is, right? You make lemonade out of lemons, and that's what you're trying to do.
Such a great conversation today. Great way to start off our week, and we really appreciate you all for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Great to meet you.
Yeah, good job.
Thanks to all of our viewers for being with us here today as well, and we will see you back here tomorrow. Coming up tomorrow on the Morning Medical Update, the youngest man ever to be diagnosed with breast cancer is on a mission. Tell the world it's not just a woman's disease. I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Morning Medical Update. Brett Miller's fight to be heard, be seen, and be accepted in the community of survivors. Plus, how he found his tumor at just age 17. Tuesday at 8.
Subscribe to our Morning Medical Update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.